What happens when a man waits all night at a Christmas table set for his children, only to be told in a family chat to eat alone? Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? By morning, I had quietly changed one thing they never thought I would touch. When they read it, the house went silent, and everything they relied on began to collapse. The turkey sat in the center of the table, still steaming under foil. I had checked it twice, making sure the skin was crisp, the way Wright liked it. Mashed potatoes in the good bowl, the one my wife used to serve from. Green beans with almonds because Grant once said they reminded him of being 10 years old. Cranberry sauce in a small dish, homemade, because Mina posted about hating the canned stuff. 3 plates, 3 sets of silverware, 3 wine glasses, even though I only drink water now. The medication does not mix well with alcohol, but I wanted everything to look right. I wanted them to see I remembered. The clock on the wall ticked past 7, then 8. I sat in my chair at the head of the table, hands folded, watching the food cool. My phone rested face up beside my plate. No calls, no messages, just the blue glow of the screensaver, a photo of the 4 of us from years ago, back when I was still driving cross-country, and they were still young enough to wait for me to come home. At 8:45, the phone buzzed. I picked it up quickly, thinking maybe they were close, maybe stuck in traffic, maybe running late but still coming. It was a message in the family group chat. Wright had typed it. "Dad, we decided to do our own thing this year. You understand. Eat without us." I stared at the words, read them again. Then I scrolled up to see if I had missed something earlier, a warning, an apology. There was nothing, just that single line, casual and quick, like he was canceling a dentist appointment. I set the phone down. My hands were steady. I did not feel anger, not yet. I felt something quieter, something that settled in my chest like cold water. Grant's name appeared next, 3 dots blinking as he typed. "Yeah, no offense, but we're good. Have a nice night." Then Mina, always the last to chime in, always careful with her words. "We'll catch up soon, okay? Don't be upset." I did not reply. I looked at the table, at the effort I had spent all afternoon preparing. The turkey, the potatoes, the beans. I had been out of the hospital for 3 weeks, still adjusting to the insulin schedule, still rebuilding strength in my legs. The doctor said I needed rest. I spent the day cooking instead. The notification at the bottom of the screen changed, seen by Wright, seen by Grant, seen by Mina. All 3 of them had read it. All 3 of them knew I was sitting here alone. I turned off the phone and placed it face down on the table. Then I stood, slowly, because my knees still ached from the months in bed. I covered the food with plastic wrap, piece by piece, and put it all in the refrigerator. The turkey barely fit. I had bought the biggest one they had. When the kitchen was clean, I walked into the living room and turned on the lamp by the couch. The house felt larger than it should, too many rooms for one person. I used to like the quiet. Now it pressed against me like weight. I sat down at the desk in the corner, the one I used to pay bills on when I came home from long hauls. The drawer on the right still had folders inside, organized by year. I pulled out the one labeled 2019, then 2021, then 2023. I spread them across the desk and began reading. Old documents, contracts, trust papers, things I had set up years ago, back when I thought planning ahead meant protecting them, back when I thought they would need me. I found the folder I was looking for near the bottom. The edges were worn, the label faded. Inside were the amendments I had signed when I first got sick, the ones that gave them access, the ones that made everything easier for them if something happened to me. I took out a pen and a blank sheet of paper. I wrote down 3 names, Harold Fenwick, Laura Benning, Nina Calder, people I would need to talk to, people who could help me understand what I was about to do. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Christmas was over. I sat in the lamplight, reading through papers I had not looked at in years. Papers that said they were entitled to things I had built. Papers that assumed I would always be the one who gave, and they would always be the ones who took. I did not sleep that night. I did not eat the food I had saved. I sat at the desk until the sun came up, making notes, checking dates, circling clauses I had once ignored. By morning, I had decided. The hospital ward smelled like disinfectant and something else, something faint and sour that clung to the walls. I had been there for 6 weeks. Pneumonia first, then complications from the sugar levels. They said I was lucky. They said it could have been worse. I did not feel lucky. I felt hollow. The bed next to mine had been empty for 2 days. Before that, an older man named Vincent had been there, hooked up to machines that beeped louder than mine. His daughter visited every afternoon, sometimes with his grandson. They brought him soup in a thermos, even though he was not supposed to eat it. The nurses pretended not to notice. When Vincent left, his daughter hugged him for a long time in the hallway. I watched through the door. She cried. He patted her shoulder and told her he was fine. She did not believe him, but she smiled anyway. I thought about that a lot after he was gone. Wright had called twice during the first week. Both times he said he would visit soon. Both times something came up. A meeting, a project, a deadline. I told him it was fine. I told him I understood. Grant sent a text on day 12. "Hang in there, old man. We'll come see you when things settle down." Things never settled down. Mina posted on her blog while I was still in the ICU. I found it later, after I was moved to the regular ward, and got my phone back. The post was about self-care and boundaries, about how important it is to protect your energy from people who drain you, about how family does not mean you owe anyone your time. She did not mention me by name. She did not have to. Laura Benning was the social worker assigned to my case. She came by every few days, clipboard in hand, asking questions about my living situation. Did I have help at home? Did I need a wheelchair ramp? Did I have someone to pick me up when I was discharged? I told her I was fine. I told her my kids would handle it. She looked at me with the expression people use when they know you are lying but are too polite to say it. She wrote something on her clipboard and moved on. On the day I was discharged, she came back. She handed me a folder with phone numbers for home health aides and meal delivery services. She asked again if someone was coming to get me. I said yes. I called a taxi. The rehabilitation clinic was quieter than the hospital. Fewer machines. Fewer people. I went 3 times a week for physical therapy, learning how to walk without losing my breath, how to manage the injections, how to check my levels without panicking when the numbers were wrong. The cafeteria had large windows that looked out at a parking lot. I sat there between sessions, drinking decaf coffee that tasted like rust, watching people come and go. Most of them had someone with them, a spouse, a friend, a relative who looked annoyed but showed up anyway. I sat alone. One afternoon, I overheard 2 women talking at the table behind me. One of them was complaining about her father, how he kept calling her, how he expected her to drop everything and visit him. She said it like it was an inconvenience. She said it like he was asking too much. Her friend nodded along, sipping tea. "You have to set boundaries," she said. "You can't let him guilt trip you." I wanted to turn around. I wanted to ask her what it felt like to have a father who still called. But I did not. I finished my coffee and left. At home, the living room became my routine. I set up a small station by the couch with my glucose monitor, insulin pens, pill organizer. Everything within reach. I learned to cook smaller meals, things that did not require standing for too long. I learned to ask for help from delivery drivers when the groceries were too heavy. I did not ask my children. I stopped expecting them to offer. Wright video called once in late November. He looked tired, distracted. He asked how I was doing, but I could see his eyes flicking to something off screen. An email, a notification, something more important. I told him I was managing. He said that was good. He said he would try to visit soon. He said the same thing he had said in October, and September, and August. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet for a long time, staring at the blank screen. Grant messaged me on Thanksgiving. "Hope you're doing okay. We're swamped this week, but thinking of you." Mina sent a photo of her brunch, avocado toast and mimosas. She captioned it with a heart emoji. I did not respond to either of them. I made myself a sandwich and ate it at the kitchen counter, standing because sitting at the table alone felt worse. That night, I went into the garage and found the boxes I had stored years ago, my old route logs, receipts from truck stops across 40 states, photos of me standing next to the rig, younger, stronger, before the sugar got bad and the joints started aching. I used to be gone for weeks at a time. I used to call them from rest stops, from motel rooms with scratchy sheets and buzzing lights. I used to ask about school, about friends, about what they wanted for their birthdays. I used to send money home every month, more than I needed to, because I wanted them to have things I did not have growing up. I thought that was love. I thought that was enough. I put the boxes back and went inside. I sat at the desk in the living room and opened the drawer again. I took out the folder labeled Trust Documents. I read through the pages slowly, tracing the lines with my finger, understanding for the first time what I had signed. My name, their names, authority granted, access approved, contingencies in place. I had made it easy for them. I had made sure they would be fine without me. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I found Harold Fenwick's number, the lawyer who had helped me set everything up years ago. I had not spoken to him since the paperwork was finalized. I pressed call. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I left a message. Short. Calm. I said I needed to talk about the trust. I said I had questions. 2 days later, he called back. "Elias," he said. His voice was steady, professional. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" I told him I wanted to review the terms. I told him I wanted to know what could be changed. There was a pause on the other end. Then he said, "All right, let's set up a meeting." I hung up and stared at the folder on the desk. Something had shifted. Something I could not name yet. But I felt it. The storage unit smelled like cardboard and dust. I had not been here in over a year, maybe longer. The lock was stiff, and it took me 2 tries to get the key to turn. When the door rolled up, the space looked smaller than I remembered. Boxes stacked against the walls, old furniture covered in sheets, a lamp that used to sit in the hallway. Things I had kept because throwing them away felt wrong, even though I never looked at them. I stepped inside and pulled the string on the overhead bulb. Yellow light spilled across the concrete floor. I knelt down slowly, my knees protesting, and opened the box closest to me. Tax returns, W-2 forms, pay stubs from jobs I had worked before the trucking company. I flipped through them, scanning dates, amounts, names of places I had forgotten. Every piece of paper was a reminder of how much I had worked, how much I had earned, how much I had sent home. The next box had photos, not the good ones, not the ones in frames. These were the leftovers, the blurry shots, the ones where someone blinked or the lighting was off. Right at his high school graduation, leaning against the car I had bought him. Grant holding a basketball trophy, smiling with a mouthful of braces I had paid for. Mina, in her prom dress, standing on the front porch, waiting for a date who showed up late. I put the photos back and moved to the next box. This one was heavier. Inside were folders, thick ones, labeled by year. I pulled out the one marked 2019 and opened it. The trust documents were near the front. I had signed them in Harold's office, back when I thought planning ahead was the smart thing to do. Back when I thought my kids would need protection if something happened to me on the road. I read through the terms again, slower this time, understanding things I had glossed over before. Authority to access accounts, power to make decisions on my behalf, rights to the house, the savings, the life insurance policy. I had given them everything. I had made sure they would be taken care of. I found another folder underneath, one I had not looked at in years. Inside were the original contracts from when I bought the house. Mortgage papers, refinancing documents, a deed with my name on it, signed and notarized. I had paid off the house 3 years ago. I had told the kids about it, expecting them to be proud, expecting them to understand what it meant. Wright had said congratulations. Grant had sent a thumbs-up emoji. Mina had not responded at all. I closed the folder and sat back on my heels. My chest felt tight, but not from the breathing, from something else, from the weight of realizing that everything I had built, everything I had worked for, had been handed over without question, without gratitude, without thought. I stood up and left the storage unit. I locked the door behind me and drove to the truck stop diner on the edge of town. I had not been there in months, but it looked the same. Faded signs, cracked pavement, a row of rigs parked along the side. Inside, the smell of coffee and grease hit me immediately. I took a booth by the window and ordered decaf and toast. The waitress did not recognize me, but I recognized her. She had been working here for years, always moving, always busy, always tired. I thought about the nights I used to stop here after long hauls, too wired to sleep, too exhausted to drive. I would sit in this same booth, eating eggs and bacon, watching the sun come up over the interstate. I would call home and leave messages because the kids were already asleep. I would tell them I loved them. I would tell them I would be home soon. I never knew if they listened to those messages. I never asked. The toast came, and I ate it slowly, staring out at the parking lot. A driver climbed out of his truck, stretching, rubbing his neck. He looked like I used to look, worn down, underpaid, doing it anyway because there was no other choice. I finished my coffee and paid the bill. On my way out, I stopped at the pay phone by the restroom. It still worked somehow. I dialed Harold's office number from memory. He picked up on the third ring. "Elias," he said, "I was expecting your call. Can we meet?" I asked. "When?" "Tomorrow." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'll make time." I hung up and walked back to my car. The sun was setting, the sky turning orange and pink. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. When I got home, I went straight to the desk in the living room. I pulled out the trust folder again and found the page I had been looking for, the section on amendments, the clause that said changes could be made with proper documentation and legal approval. I circled it with a red pen. Then I wrote a note in the margin. "Call Harold. Confirm. Proceed." I did not pray. I did not second guess. I knew what I was about to do, and I knew there was no going back. The law office waiting room was too warm. I sat in a leather chair near the window, watching cars pass on the street below. The receptionist had offered me water. I declined. My hands were steady, and I wanted to keep them that way. Harold opened the door to his office and gestured for me to come in. He was older than I remembered, grayer, but his handshake was firm. He closed the door behind me and motioned to the chair across from his desk. "Elias," he said, settling into his seat. "It's been a while." "It has," I said. He opened a folder on his desk. I recognized the documents inside, the ones I had signed years ago, the ones that gave my children control if I became incapacitated, the ones I had trusted would only be used if I could not make decisions for myself. "You said you wanted to review the terms," Harold said. "What specifically are you concerned about?" I leaned forward, resting my forearms on my knees. "I want to know what I can change." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "The trust allows for amendments under certain conditions. You're still the primary grantor. You retain the authority to modify or revoke access as long as you're mentally competent." "I'm competent," I said. "I know you are," Harold said. "So what do you want to do?" I took a breath. I want to revoke their access. All of it. Harold did not react. He simply picked up a pen and pulled out a blank legal pad. Walk me through it. I told him everything. The hospital stay, the missed visits, the canceled Christmas, the messages in the group chat, the blog post, the years of phone calls that went unanswered, the promises that were never kept. Harold wrote it all down. When I finished, he set the pen aside and looked at me. This is going to hurt them, he said. You understand that? They hurt me first, I said. He nodded slowly. All right, I'll draft the amendments. It'll take about a week to finalize. You'll need to sign in front of a notary. I can do that, I said. One more thing, Harold said. Once this is done, it's permanent. If you change your mind later, reinstating their access will require their consent. They could refuse. I won't change my mind, I said. He closed the folder and stood. I'll call you when the paperwork is ready. I shook his hand and left the office. On the drive home, I felt lighter. Not happy, not relieved, just lighter, like I had been carrying something heavy for too long and finally set it down. That evening, I opened my laptop and logged into the family group chat. I had not posted anything since Christmas. Neither had they. The chat had been silent for days. I typed a message. I'd like to have a family video call this weekend, Saturday at noon. I have something to discuss. Let me know if that works. I hit send and closed the laptop. I did not wait for a response. I knew they would see it. I knew they would show up. They always did when it was convenient for them. The next morning, I checked my phone. 3 replies. Right. Sure, I can do noon. Grant. Works for me. Mina. Okay. What's this about? I did not answer her question. I just liked her message and left it at that. The week passed slowly. I kept myself busy. I went to the clinic for my checkup. I cleaned the house. I cooked simple meals and ate them at the counter, standing because sitting at the table still felt wrong. On Thursday, Harold called. The amendments were ready. I drove to his office the next morning and signed them in front of a notary. The woman barely looked at me. She stamped the papers, signed her name, and handed them back to Harold. That's it, he said. It's done. I folded the documents and put them in my bag. I thanked him and left. That night I sat at the desk in the living room and opened my laptop. I logged into the bank account, the one they had access to. I changed the password. Then I logged into the investment account and did the same. Then the insurance portal. Then the property management system. One by one, I locked them out. When I was finished, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. The changes were invisible to them, for now. They would not know anything had happened until I told them. I closed the laptop and went to bed. I slept better than I had in months. Saturday morning, I woke up early. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, waiting. The video call was scheduled for noon. I had 2 hours. I thought about what I would say, how I would start, how I would explain. Then I realized I did not owe them an explanation. I owed them the truth. That was all. At 11:55, I opened my laptop and logged into the video call. I adjusted the camera so they could see me clearly. Then I waited. At exactly noon, the screen flickered. Wright appeared first, sitting at his desk, looking impatient. Then Grant, leaning back in a chair, arms crossed. Then Mina, on her phone, barely paying attention. I looked at the 3 of them, my children, and felt nothing. Thanks for joining, I said. Wright nodded. What's this about, Dad? I took a breath. I've made some changes, I said. The church parking lot was empty except for my car. I sat behind the wheel, engine off, staring at the stained glass windows glowing faintly in the dusk. I had not been inside in years, not since the funeral. But I came here sometimes when I needed to think. The night before the call, I could not sleep. I kept imagining their faces, the confusion, the anger, the disbelief. I kept replaying the words I would say, testing them, making sure they were right. I got out of the car and walked to the edge of the lot where the grass started. The air was cold, and my breath came out in clouds. I shoved my hands into my pockets and looked up at the sky. No stars, just the dull glow of streetlights and distance. I thought about the last time I had prayed. Really prayed. Not the automatic words you say at funerals or weddings, but the kind where you actually believed someone was listening. I could not remember. Maybe it was when my wife got sick. Maybe before that. I did not pray now. I just stood there, feeling the cold seep through my jacket, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. When I got home, I went straight to the desk. The folder with the amended documents sat on top, sealed in an envelope. I opened it and read through the pages one more time, every clause, every change, every line that said they no longer had access. Revocation of trust authority, reassignment of financial control, termination of property usage rights. I had signed it all. Harold had notarized it all. It was legal. It was final. I set the papers aside and opened my laptop. I logged into the family group chat and scrolled through the old messages. Months of one-sided conversations, me asking how they were, them responding with short answers, me suggesting visits, them saying maybe, me sending photos from the hospital, them reacting with a thumbs up. I found the message from Christmas. Dad, we decided to do our own thing this year. You understand? Eat without us. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took a screenshot and saved it to a folder on my desktop. Evidence. Not for them. For me. So I would remember why I was doing this. I closed the laptop and walked into the kitchen. The table was clean, empty, the way it had been since Christmas night. I ran my hand along the edge, feeling the smooth wood, the small scratches and dents from years of use. This table had seen birthdays, holidays, homework sessions, arguments, apologies. It had been the center of everything when they were young. Now it was just furniture. I turned off the light and went to bed. I set my alarm for 8. I wanted time in the morning to prepare, to make sure everything was ready. I woke up before the alarm. I showered, shaved, dressed in clean clothes. I made coffee and drank it at the counter, standing, watching the clock on the wall tick closer to noon. At 10, I opened my laptop and tested the video call link. The connection was strong. The camera angle was good. I could see myself clearly on the screen. I looked older than I felt, thinner, tired, but my eyes were steady. At 11, I printed out a copy of the amended trust documents and set them on the desk beside me, just in case, just so I could reference them if needed. At 11:30, I logged into the call and waited. The screen was black except for my own face in the corner. I looked at myself and thought about the man I used to be. The driver, the father, the one who always came home, no matter how far the road. That man was gone. This one was all that was left. At 11:55, I straightened my shoulders and adjusted the camera one last time. Then I waited. The screen flickered. Wright appeared first, his face filling one square on the grid. He looked annoyed already, like this was an interruption. He glanced at something off-screen and then back at the camera. Grant appeared next, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. He was in his apartment, the one I had helped him move into last year, the one I had co-signed the lease for because his credit was not good enough on its own. Mina was last. She was on her phone, scrolling, barely looking up. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore a sweatshirt I recognized. I had bought it for her 3 Christmases ago. I looked at the 3 of them, my children, and felt the weight of everything I had carried for them, the years, the sacrifices, the hope that someday they would care enough to show up. They never did. "Thanks for joining," I said. Wright nodded. "What's this about, Dad? I've got a meeting in an hour." Grant smirked. "Yeah, make it quick." Mina finally looked up from her phone. "Is everything okay?" I took a breath, steady, calm, final. "I've made some changes," I said. They stared at me through the screen, waiting. Wright's expression shifted from impatience to mild concern. Grant uncrossed his arms and leaned forward slightly. Mina set her phone down. Changes to what? Wright asked. I kept my voice even. No anger, no emotion, just facts. I've revoked your access to the trust, I said. The silence was immediate. Wright blinked. Grant frowned. Mina's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. What do you mean revoked? Wright said. His tone had changed, sharper now, defensive. I mean exactly that, I said. As of this week, you no longer have authority over any of my accounts. You no longer have access to the house. You no longer have power of attorney. Grant laughed, but it was forced. Come on, Dad. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the trust I set up for you 10 years ago, I said. The one that gave you control if I became incapacitated. I've amended it. The authority is gone. Wright's face flushed. You can't just do that. I can, I said. And I did. Mina leaned closer to the camera. Why would you do that? I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed confused, but not hurt. Not yet. That would come later. Because you don't deserve it, I said. The words hung in the air. No one spoke. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital, I said. Not one of you visited, not once. I called, I texted, I asked if you could stop by. You said you were busy, you said you'd come soon. You never did. Wright started to interrupt, but I kept going. I got discharged alone. I went to rehab alone. I came home alone. I set a Christmas table for the 3 of you, and you told me to eat by myself. You didn't even have the decency to call. You sent a text. In a group chat. Grant shifted in his seat. Dad, we've been swamped. You know how it is. I know exactly how it is, I said. I know because I lived it. I spent 30 years on the road, working 80-hour weeks, so you could have what you needed. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. I missed your entire childhoods because I was trying to provide for you. And I thought that was what a father did. I thought that was love. Mina's eyes were wet now. Dad, we didn't mean... Yes, you did, I said. You meant every bit of it. You took what I gave, and you forgot I was the one giving it. You treated me like an inconvenience, like I was asking too much by wanting to see you, by wanting you to care. Wright's jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. Am I? I said. I picked up the phone beside me and opened the screenshot I had saved, the message from Christmas. I held it up to the camera. Dad, we decided to do our own thing this year. You understand? Eat without us. I lowered the phone. Does that sound like overreacting? No one answered. I gave you everything, I said. The house you grew up in, the cars you drove, the college tuition, the co-signed leases, the financial safety net. I made sure you would be taken care of if something happened to me. And you couldn't even show up for Christmas. Grant's voice was quiet now. We'll do better. We'll come visit more. No, you won't, I said. Because you never have. And I'm done waiting for you to care. Mina was crying now, but I did not stop. I've changed the passwords to every account. I've reassigned the property rights. I've updated the beneficiaries. The house is no longer in your names. The savings account is no longer accessible to you. The life insurance policy no longer lists you as primary. Wright stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You can't do this. I already have, I said. This is insane, Grant shouted. You're punishing us because we're busy? I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm protecting myself. From people who don't care if I live or rot away in a hospital bed. Mina's voice broke. Dad, please. We're sorry. We'll fix this. I looked at her, and for a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. But then I remembered the blog post. The one about boundaries, about not letting people drain you, about how family doesn't mean obligation. You already had your chance to fix it, I said. Every day for the last year. Every call I made, every message I sent, you chose not to answer. You chose to stay away. So now I'm choosing to let you go. Wright's face was red now, his voice rising. "You're making a huge mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's my mistake to make." I reached for the laptop, my hand hovering over the keyboard. "Wait," Mina said. "Please, can we talk about this?" "We just did," I said, and I ended the call. The screen went black. My face disappeared. The room was silent except for the hum of the laptop fan. I sat there for a long time, staring at the dark screen. My hands were still steady, my breathing was calm. I felt no regret. My phone buzzed. Then again. Messages flooding in. I turned it over without reading them. I closed the laptop and stood. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I drank it slowly, looking out the window at the yard, at the trees swaying in the wind. I had done it. I had taken back what was mine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had made the right choice. The phone kept buzzing. I ignored it. They would call. They would beg. They would apologize. Maybe they even meant it. But it did not matter anymore. I had spent my whole life giving. Now I was done. I walked back to the living room and sat down at the desk. I opened the drawer and pulled out a blank sheet of paper. I wrote 3 words at the top. New beneficiaries. Then I started writing names. Laura Benning, Harold Fenwick, charities I had researched, organizations that helped people like me, people who had been forgotten. I would leave them something, not out of spite, but because I wanted my life to mean something after I was gone. I wanted it to help people who actually needed it. I finished the list and set the pen down. Then I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. The messages did not stop. I checked my phone the next morning and saw 43 notifications, texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from them. I did not open any of them. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen counter, sipping slowly, watching the sunlight move across the floor. The house felt different now, lighter, like something had been lifted. My phone buzzed again. Wright's name appeared on the screen. I declined the call and set the phone face down. An hour later, someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mina standing on the porch. Her eyes were red, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She knocked again, harder this time. I did not open the door. "Dad?" she called. "I know you're in there. Please, just talk to me." I stood on the other side, silent, watching her through the small circle of glass. She knocked again. Then she pressed her forehead against the door. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was muffled, shaking. "I'm so sorry. Please let me in." I turned and walked back to the kitchen. I heard her knock a few more times. Then her footsteps on the porch. Then the sound of her car starting in the driveway. I looked out the window and watched her leave. The next day, Grant showed up. He did not knock. He rang the doorbell over and over, holding it down until the chime became a constant drone. Then he started pounding on the door. "This is insane!" he shouted. "Open the door! We need to talk!" I sat in the living room, arms folded, waiting for him to leave. He kept shouting, kept pounding. Then he stopped. I heard his footsteps move around the side of the house toward the back door. I had locked it. I had locked everything. He tried the handle. Then he kicked the door, not hard enough to break it, but hard enough that I heard the frame rattle. "Fine!" he yelled. "Fine! You want to be alone? You got it!" I heard his car peel out of the driveway, tires screeching on the pavement. I did not move. Wright was the last to come. He arrived 2 days later, in the evening, just as the sun was setting. He did not knock. He did not shout. He just stood on the porch, hands in his pockets, staring at the door. I watched him through the window. He looked tired, older. He stood there for 10 minutes, maybe longer. Then he turned and walked back to his car. Before he got in, he looked back at the house. I stepped away from the window so he would not see me. He drove away slowly. No screeching tires, no shouting. just silence. That night, I sat at the desk and checked my email. There were messages from all three of them, long ones, paragraphs full of apologies and explanations. Wright blamed his job, Grant blamed his schedule, Mina blamed her mental health. None of them blamed themselves. I deleted the emails without responding. The house was quiet. I liked it that way. Over the next few weeks, the calls slowed down. The messages became less frequent. Wright stopped trying. Grant sent one last text saying I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Mina posted something vague on her blog about forgiveness and moving on. I did not read it. I went to the clinic for my follow-up appointment. Laura Benning was there, clipboard in hand, asking her usual questions. She noticed I looked different. Calmer, maybe. Less worn down. "You're doing well," she said. "I am," I said. She smiled. "Good. Keep it up." I left the clinic and drove to Harold's office. He had called earlier in the week, saying he had finalized the updated beneficiary paperwork. I signed the documents in front of the notary again, and Harold filed them immediately. "That's it," he said. "Everything is locked in. No one can contest it now." "Thank you," I said. He walked me to the door. "For what it's worth, Elias, I think you did the right thing." I nodded. I did not need his approval, but it was good to hear. On the drive home, I stopped at the truck stop diner. I ordered coffee and toast, same as before. The same waitress was working. She still did not recognize me. I ate slowly, watching the trucks pull in and out of the lot. Drivers getting in, drivers getting out. All of them going somewhere. All of them coming back. I used to be one of them. Now I was just a man sitting in a booth, drinking coffee, watching the world move without him. When I got home, I checked the mail. There was an envelope from the bank confirming the updated account information. Another from the insurance company, confirming the beneficiary changes. Another from the property management office, confirming the reassignment. I filed them all in the desk drawer next to the trust documents. That night, I sat on the couch and turned on the television. I did not watch anything in particular, just let the noise fill the room so it did not feel so empty. My phone buzzed once, a message from an unknown number. I opened it. "Dad, it's Mina. I'm using a friend's phone. Please just talk to me, please." I turned off the phone and set it on the table. I did not respond. I did not need to. 3 months passed. The calls stopped completely. The messages disappeared. The emails went silent. I settled into a new routine. Clinic visits every 2 weeks, grocery shopping on Thursdays, walks around the neighborhood when the weather was good. I learned to cook smaller portions, to eat meals that did not require much effort. I joined a support group at the community center. People with sugar problems like mine. People learning to manage. People who understood what it was like to suddenly have limits where there used to be none. We met every Tuesday evening in a room with folding chairs and fluorescent lights. A woman named Janet ran the meetings. She was older than me, sharp-eyed, no patience for self-pity. "We're here to help each other," she said at my first meeting. Not to complain, not to feel sorry for ourselves, to help. I liked that. The group was small, 6 people, sometimes 7. Most of them were older. A few were younger, newly informed, still adjusting. We talked about medication, about diet, about what it was like to suddenly feel fragile when you used to feel strong. No one asked about my family. No one asked if I had kids. It was not that kind of group. One evening, after the meeting, Janet stopped me on my way out. "You're doing well," she said. "Thank you," I said. "But you're holding something," she said. "I can see it." I looked at her. She was not accusatory, just observant. "I'm managing," I said. "Managing is not the same as healing," she said. "You know that, right?" I nodded. I did not argue. She was right. On my way home, I stopped at the storage unit. I had not been there since the day I found the trust documents. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, pulling the string on the overhead bulb. The boxes were still there, untouched. I opened the one with the photos again, the blurry ones, the leftovers. I flipped through them slowly, looking at faces I used to know, faces that used to be mine. Wright at 10, holding a baseball bat. Grant at 8, covered in mud from the backyard. Mina at 6, missing her front teeth, grinning at the camera. I did not feel anger looking at them. I did not feel love either. I just felt distance, like they were strangers, like I was looking at someone else's life. I put the photos back and closed the box. Then I locked the unit and drove home. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the family group chat for the first time in weeks. There were no new messages. The last one was from Grant, 3 months ago. Fine. You win. Hope you're happy. I was not happy, but I was not unhappy either. I just was. I logged out and closed the laptop. The next morning, I went to the bank. I met with a financial advisor, a young man named Avon, who walked me through my accounts. He showed me projections, investment options, ways to stretch what I had so it would last. You're in good shape, he said. Better than most people your age. That's good to know, I said. He handed me a folder with printed reports. If you have any questions, just call. I thanked him and left. On the drive home, I thought about what Janet had said, about holding something, about not healing. She was right. I was holding on to something. Not anger, not resentment, just the weight of what I had lost, not them, but the idea of them, the version of them I had built in my head, the one where they cared, the one where they showed up. That version never existed. I knew that now. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, engine idling. Then I turned it off and went inside. I sat at the desk and opened the drawer. I took out the folder with the trust documents and flipped through the pages. Then I took out the screenshots I had saved, the messages, the blog post, the evidence. I stared at them for a long time. Then I closed the folder and put it back in the drawer. I did not need to look at them anymore. I did not need to remember why I had done what I did. I just needed to keep moving forward. That evening, I sat on the porch and watched the sun set. The air was cool, the sky turning orange and purple. A neighbor walked by with a dog. We nodded at each other. No words, just acknowledgement. It was enough. I went inside and made dinner. Something simple, something I liked. I ate it at the counter, standing, because I still did not like sitting at the table alone. When I was finished, I washed the dishes and put them away. Then I sat on the couch and turned on the television. I did not watch anything in particular. I just let the noise fill the room. My phone was on the table, screen dark, no messages, no calls. I picked it up and opened the contacts. I scrolled through the names. Wright, Grant, Mina. I did not delete them. I just left them there, untouched, like relics from another life. Then I set the phone down and leaned back on the couch. The room was quiet. The house was still. And for the first time in a long time, I did not mind.